All right. Hello and welcome to today's episode where we're going to talk about the idea or the question, am I hearing the voice of God or is this OCD? So this is going to be in the context of religious OCD or scrupulosity, and a very nuanced question that was submitted by several people on the podcast. So if you have questions, obviously, you're welcome to throw them in the discussion or chat or comments, because I do review them. And oftentimes, we'll use it to produce more videos to help kind of clarify certain points. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. So how do I know if I'm hearing the voice of God or am I hearing OCD, right? And this question obviously is rooted in doubt already. And so I just want to point out the entire idea that the context is just within doubt. But let's go ahead and talk about that. Because obviously the fear is if let's say that I'm listening to this voice in my mind and it's, quote unquote God talking to me, if I ignore that, I'm ignoring God and the fear and the ramifications of that. So how do you know? And at the end of the day, I don't think this is something that, number one, like I'm going to be able to answer for everyone, right? This is something that I'll kind of talk about what I do myself to determine, am I listening to fear? Am I listening to, the voice of God or my creator and what that means. So the first thing is this idea of, is there fear oriented, right? Is there fear in this? Because again, if we're coming from a biblical standpoint, I believe it's 1 Peter, right? Says very clearly, I didn't give you a spirit of fear, right? So fear itself, the energy of fear and that energy of anxiety, all of that stuff is not from the creator, right? And so if there's that energy there, I already have reason to believe that that's not from God. And how I actually see it is more along the lines of you have the mind and then you have your intuition. And I believe that my creator speaks to my intuition, not my mind. My mind or ego, right, is this concept that I have of myself that, contains, again, the past and things that I've learned, experiences I've had, emotions, all of that. And, Wayne Dyer did a really good job. And I don't know if he was actually the one that coined this or not, but I learned it from him. So I'm going to pay tribute to him. The idea of ego, ego, meaning edging God out. So how do I know if because again, our ego is where we become essentially our own, dare I say, mini gods, right? We see ourselves and our mind as the solution. We'll think this through. So we trust our mind over trusting the divine or our creator. And it's interesting because it's like you can actually interchange all these words. People get very married to using certain terminology because they grew up learning that was the quote unquote correct terminology. I mean, even people that use words like universe and source and the highest power or, all this other stuff, I actually think they're talking about the same thing. It's just certain people have been turned off by the word God, and in all honesty, rightfully so. In some experiences that I've heard people go through, so I want to kind of talk about so while I believe that there's this one divine God, how you communicate that for yourself and how you conceptualize that for yourself is totally up to you, and I want to make sure that I articulate that I'm just merely expressing my own ideas on this in my own experience. So when I was struggling with scrupulosity, that was one of my fears was, what if this is God telling me this, right? How do I know? And it kept coming back to this one idea that God doesn't operate in fear. God doesn't fear, right? So that energy itself is almost an indication that's that energy of confusion and chaos and uncertainty and doubt is already not of God, right? So if I feel that energy with something, I can already almost discern that that's not from God. Number two, like I said, is the idea of intuition versus ego. Ego is in my mind. Intuition is more in my body, right? It's that gut feeling. It's that internal nudge. And it's that kind of internal push. Now, with the ego, with the intuition, we're going through the etymology of it. I'm going to read some stuff here, so I want to just pull it up. So if you separate the idea of intuition, right, tuition stems from the Anglo-French meaning to care and have protection over, right? So when we pay tuition at school, right, we're paying for that care and provision and protection. So that intuition, that inner protection, inner guidance system, all of that is really how I see how our Creator communicates with us. And so it happens internally, right? You talked about the kingdom of God is within. Another, obviously biblical reference there. So that inner conviction, though, is always very clear, very calm, and kind of, again, very gentle nudge. It's not chaotic, right? The mind in anxiety tends to be very chaotic, very loud, very uncertain, very all over the place, where the intuition tends to be this real gentle nudge. A lot of times, many, people that have been subjected to attacks or violent crimes, sexual crimes, a lot of times they will report having felt this inner nudge and this inner intuitive sense that says, hey, like this, something's not right about this person, but they will have stayed in the situation anyway, because their mind will come in and say, oh no, that's being judgmental or this, that, and the other. Where your intuition is able to connect and sense like the energy of a person, right? Like their true intention. And it is higher than the mind. Okay. So the intuitive sense is really how I believe my Creator communicates with me, right? That's how I look for communication with my Creator, right? Because it's that intuitive nudge that is never wrong. That's the other thing. Like the mind is wrong all the time. So because the mind is wrong all the time, I also know that that's obviously not divine guidance, right? Divine guidance doesn't just miss all the time. My mind does. So I tend to look for the guidance from God or my Creator intuitively, right? In the inner part of my body, these inner nudges that's outside of the mind. And in the book, The Sedona Method, they actually talk about when you have so much emotion going on in your system, it often blocks our ability to sense our intuition, which is why in TBC, or my program Taking Back Control, like one of the things that we really teach and talk about is learning to release a lot of the emotion underneath all of this. So the fear, the guilt, the anger, shame, pride, all this stuff we're really holding on to, that's often feeding these OCD and anxiety loops. And as you release more and more emotion, it gets more and more clear how to discern and listen to your intuition. So it's a great question. Again, this is just my own application in my life, what I do. It doesn't mean that this is for you. And if it doesn't align with you, like that's okay. Totally okay. I wanted to answer it because it was something that multiple people had submitted. And so with that, I hope it serves you well. And if you're looking to discern this, the first thing that you discern is the idea of the ego and the intuition, and then learning how to pay attention to your intuition and actually follow your intuition. And because intuition is a very interesting thing, like, and it's unexplainable, right? Like people just have these intuitive senses about something that is going to happen, or something that stretches outside of our time-space continuum. And once they follow it, like these miraculous things happen. Right. And that's why I believe intuition is really where we have that connection to our divine guidance, as opposed to the mind itself, which I believe is, again, ego and actually removed from that. So that's what I have to say on that. Hope that was helpful. If you are interested in potentially working together, I have some links down in the notes. You can head over to restoredminds.com as well and get started there. So with that, wish you all a great week, great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com, as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.